I am getting a notice that we appear to be back online on our stream. Apologies for that little technical delay. Still here with Jonah, who hasn't yet had a chance to answer a question, so here we go. Let's say that you do win this VP Opportunities role.
Okay.
On your first day, you walk into the guild offices behind the glass, along with all your other sabbatical officers. What's the first thing on your to-do list? What's your number one priority on day one?
First thing is to thank the voters. I don't want to just like mail them or put a thank you note. I just want to go out, speak with the people, thanking them how I did the campaign.
And the role itself, how would you describe your vision for what you want to do with the role of VP Opportunities?
Yes. In the past, I was able to create lots of opportunities through creating lots of events in my undergrads. So the reason why I'm standing here for VP Opportunity is there I did it in a small scale. Here I want to do it in a large scale for the entire university. Yeah.
In that sort of creation of opportunities, are we talking specifically down the route of employability? Are we talking in terms of engagement for student societies? How do you see those two coming together, or would you put your focus on one or the other?
Yes, employability in the aspect, like one of my key goal is to get connected with the employers, having a tie-up with them, and through that having something called a guaranteed job opportunity for the student who graduates. So say for example, I'm a postgrad student. Though we have career zone and lots of assistants here, most of the students are not willing to use that or not able to find a job through that. It's a serious problem. So through that, what we can do is that hosting career fairs, maybe once in a year, connecting all the employers in the UK and internationally, taking them here. And in that respect to that, like we can connect that with the societies, enriching the students to come take part in that.
So with this new employability drive that I think is going to be quite crucial to your time if you were to get the role, would you be looking to sort of mould and reform the existing opportunities that we have here in terms of our employability routes, or would you be looking to institute brand new ones that don't have any ties to the ones we currently have?
Yes, this career fair, I want to do it in a bigger scale. It's not going to be virtual or something like that. It's face-to-face interaction so that the employers can come here, talk with the students directly. So usually the country where I come from, we used to have this in our colleges. So in a particular year of academics, we have a career fair where it happens for a week, and the employers come there, speak with them to know them, and then they can apply for the job and they can grab with the interview and go on. So it's not going to be virtual or something like that. I just want it to be face-to-face, talking with each other, and doing it in a large scale for the entire university. And it's not just like business for the business school or just for the humanities or like that. It will be diverse. It will be connected in all the aspects. It needs lots of efforts, to be honest. It's a big plan, so yeah.
Let's turn now to the societies side of things, and there's been a number of different talking points throughout the campaign in relation to societies. One was raised during our sports president Meet the Candidates, actually, and it's the prevalence of clubs that are not affiliated to the athletics union, so they're not part of the sporting element of clubs on campus, but they are still sporty clubs. So, for example, Harry Potter Quidditch Society, that is not a sports club, but they do play that sport competitively. Pole Fitness, I believe, is another one. Would you be open to working with the AU and the sports president to help them cross that boundary so they have access to all the right facilities?
So you're asking that they are not well-established society yet, so whether I'll be supporting it or not?
They're fully established.
Okay.
They're a part of the guild, they're members of the guild, but they're not a sports society, and as such, sometimes find it more difficult to get access to the facilities that are on campus for all the students, but are managed by the athletics union, which is its own sort of separate entity within the running of this university. Would you be open to looking as to how you can get those facilities
Yes, for
shared
sure.
across?
So what I'll be doing in that aspect is that, like, say for example, a society, they want to get access, like other sports societies. A serious thing. I know lots of friends, I'm doing postgrad, so I know in my class, I know in my accommodation, I have seen people who are going through depression and lots of problems. And currently in our university, we don't have a proper solution for that. What I mean is that if you contact the well-being service, you will barely get a response after 1 week, or maybe it will take time to process. There I want to bring a solution called something called like how we have the subject representative, taking that concept to the well-being representative. So for each program, there will be a well-being representative. Say for example, in my class, a person is going through a depression or a challenge in his life. He can contact directly to this representative, and this representative will connect the student directly to the university's expertise. So in the grassroots level, we can find a solution for that. If someone is going through depression and challenge, they won't be having the mindset to put a long mail, writing an essay to the well-being, saying that this is what I go through. It's more about speaking.
So would this well-being representative be a member of that class, or a student, or someone employed by the guild?
No, he will be a volunteer who is willing to listen to people, who has a skill, will be, it's very similar to the process of subject rep we have, but implementing that in aspect of well-being. Say for example, I've been a subject rep, so I might not be having a time to, I'll be having the time to focus only on the academics, not in aspect of well-being of the students. So I want to create a change over there.
I think this is a time where we'll now turn to some of the questions from our audience, and to our audience listening at home or watching. You can get in touch and submit your own questions through @Exeter Guild on I think Facebook and Twitter, and the hashtag EXEElections22 on Twitter. But do we have any questions from our audience?
Hi, I have a question, which is, how will you encourage societies to be more accessible to students with disabilities?
So in that aspect, during our campaign, unfortunately, we were not able to get connected with the people who are having disabilities, to be honest. But the first action I will be taking is to talk with them, ask them what they need. Most of the students are not able to access the existing societies we have now. And maybe we can support them by helping them, starting up a new society for them, providing all the resources, providing special aid for them. So that would be the one thing I can do for the specially challenged students. Yeah.
Is anyone else in the audience? Yes, one at the back. We've got our microphone to you, very ably wielded by our roving reporter, Laura.
Hi. So, just out of interest, with when it comes to societies, how are you looking at streamlining or will you take any action streamlining sort of like event submission and like budget submission in like the guild processes?
Sorry, could you make the question clear? I didn't get it.
So, with sort of event submission, like risk assessments, budget submission for events, are you looking to streamline that system, as currently it's quite bureaucratic?
You mean upgrading the current system we have for the societies?
Yeah.
Yes, of course. Each society has different needs. Say, for example, the society might require more funds sometimes. The other societies might need more accessibility, reaching out the students in a different aspect, more than what we have now currently. So it's all about talking with the societies first, asking them what they need, and then taking up an action.
Do we have anyone else in the audience who wants to pop something in?
I have one from an ex-media representative who sent me a message. They're asking, we know media societies have struggled recently. How would you, the message is gone. How would you protect and grow student media?
So the challenge differs for each societies to be. So if they are going through any financial challenges or fund related things, we can bring up some aid through that. Setting up new aid or something like that. If they are going through some challenges in aspect of accessing the students, in that aspect, I have a vision to create an app which is very similar to Ellie. The problem is that if you ask any student, he hardly used to go visit Student Guild website. It's very rare, not by all the students. So what if we have an app like Ellie, like Student Guild app, and we have all the societies in that single platform, sharing all the events and things like that. So it's more about accessing that, and the societies can also request for the aid, or they can let us know the challenge what they are going through, and being a VP opportunity, I can help them sorting out that in any aspect. Yeah.
So let's dive into that app for
Yeah,
just a little moment. So there would be, I'm assuming, some form of calendar of activities and events on there so that people can see what's going on around the university?
Yes, it includes everything. So say for example, I'm a student, I always all the students, they used to go into Ellie page, Ellie app, what we have right now. So it's something kind of that, people who are active or like who wish to take part in any activities, they can do in that. They can register for the event, they can put advertisement, societies can put advertisement on that, and everything, A to Z things can be found in that.
I remember, I think it was the start of this year, there was a scheme called Give It a Go, which encouraged people to get involved in as many sort of taster sessions of societies as they can. Would you be in favour of keeping something like that and maybe even expanding it?
Yes, definitely, maybe 1 week or 2 weeks of time, we can ask the societies to have an open window so that people can come and take part in that. In that aspect, I want to add one point. Like when we was campaigning at the St. Luke campus, most of the societies doesn't go there and they don't actively take part. I really want to take action on that, encouraging the societies. What I mean by encouraging is providing the support, like let it be transportation, providing free transportation for the society members to go from here to there. Yeah.
On that one point, that may work for some societies, but
Yeah.
there are some specific examples of potentially those sporting societies who
Mhm.
need the space that the sports park on Stratham campus
Mhm.
provides, or ourselves at Expression FM. We only have the one studio,
Yeah.
and it's not on St. Luke's campus. So I'm assuming there'd be a little bit of
Yeah.
room for manoeuvre.
Interestingly, when we were campaigning at St. Luke campus, one guy randomly came and asked, like, in Stratham campus, you have a ramp bar. Why can't you open a ramp bar over there? So, like, people used to ask like that, but like, we had to be fair. Both are the students. Like, they also belong to the University of Exeter. They also need to have the same access. It really matters. So, what's the best solution we can give? Either it can be transportation, very simple, or either it can be starting up a society branch over there.
What's the best lesson that you've learned in your time at university that positions you as a better candidate to be VP Opportunities?
It's more about connecting with people. I am so happy and so blessed to have a good number of friends around me. I have a team. So I've been here in the Exeter University for last 4-5 months now. So in that particular time, I was able to create lots of people, good friends. Say for example, I have a teammate in my campaigning team. His name is Adil. He baked 200 cakes for us. He literally doesn't getting anything beneficial, but he's supporting me. So it's more about networking, connecting with people, and supporting them and listening them. Yeah.
Let's talk briefly on this connection and listening
Yeah.
aspect, because a lot of the communication that's coming out of the Guild has come under some criticism during this campaign. In the Guild presidential debate, there was plenty of criticism levelled towards the emailing system.
Mm-hmm.
Would you look to change how the Guild communicates with students, and if so, how?
Yes. It's one of the key change which I want to bring. Say for example, students might go through different challenges, different problems. They want to let the Guild know that. But if you mail the Guild, it might take, the current process takes very delay. They will take 2 or 3 days maybe to access them. If you approach them directly face to face, there are bit limitations for that. I want to bring a change, introducing something called feedback pads. It will be kept all around the campus, not just in the forum, in all around the campus. Let it be in Stratham campus, let it be in the St. Luke campus, let it be in any departments, it will be kept, and they can put their mail ID if they want, or if they don't want to, and they can put the comments over there, what they want to change. And based on that, we'll have a rapid team, which I wish to implement, and the rapid team responsibility is to respond to those mails very quickly, instantly, and making up a change over that.
Well, I think that brings to an we've got a little bit longer, I think, maybe. Oh yes, we do actually. We have a couple more time
Okay.
for questions. So let's ask a little, maybe slightly annoying one. What makes you better suited to be VP Opportunities than the candidates we've got?
First thing
society.
is my experience, my life experience, I would say. I had faced lots of challenges in my life, but it had given a lots of learning from that. One of the thing is, I never literally had, lots of opportunities in my life. But when I was in TEDx, when I was creating more opportunities for the students, I was able to see changes in them. Introvert changing to extrovert, timid to bold. it really passionated me, and it really inspired me. So through that, I had a lot of learning, and now it's my obligation to create more opportunities for the students. It's all about giving, not just looking at taking from them.
Obviously, we currently have an incumbent in the role, and actually in our audience tonight. Have you been able to have a chat with our current VP Opportunities to see if your plans are
Yes,
feasible?
I had contacted her when I was supposed to start the TEDx Society here.
Mhm.
So we had a couple of chats around the tea, and so it's not more than 2 times. Yeah.
Okay. I think with that we will draw to an end our particular line of questioning here, but just want to give you an opportunity, if people have become interested in your campaign, where can they find a bit more information about it?
They can find more information in my website. It's Jona Ashwin Selva, JOHNAASWINSCLVA.com. So you just can go there, read my manifesto, and just press the button, vote now, and you can put the vote.
There you go.
Yeah.
Jonah,
And yeah.
anywhere else?
Yeah, if you believe I can bring up the change, through my initiatives, go and vote for me. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jonah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So I mentioned at the start that we did have a candidate who was unable to join us today, and that is Marine Nazir. We do have a statement to read on her behalf. This is the personal statement that can be found on the Exeter Guild website, and it reads as follows. Hi, I am Marine, an international postgrad student determined to explore and make provisions for innovative and exciting development avenues as the next VP Opportunities. It's the warmth and welcoming vibe of the university which compelled me to step up for this position, to make an initiative for bringing positivity, progression and development, not only for myself, but for others, as well as to make their learning experience enjoyable and empowering for a brighter future ahead. I believe in making the most out of experiences in life, education and learning being at the top of the list. My aim is to contribute towards facilitating fellow students, colleagues and peers to develop a stronger sense of community within the university, engage them in activities to help identify, solidify their strengths and overcome their weaknesses for skill development and employability, support their well-being and strengthening the cultural gaps. I view this position as a chance for me to connect to the student community throughout the campuses, be a listening ear to their concerns and opinions, become their voice and represent them within the local community as well as outside where relevant to enhance prospective opportunities, encourage them to be participative members of the student community by engaging in societies, clubs, events and other activities. As VP Opportunities, I will get to appreciate, learn from and benefit local students. Moreover, from my experience of being an international student and personally experiencing the hardships of moving, settling and studying in an absolutely new environment and culture for most of us, I want to provide a platform for international students where they would feel as part of the community, could seek social assistance, become a part of societies, and facilitate them in developing a sense of belongingness, easing the transition, and explore future opportunities to overcome uncertainty. My key strategy will always be to keep students first. This, I believe, is at the heart of this position, to develop a bond with the student community, understanding them and making them feel that they are understood, hearing them out and making sure they feel heard, provide for them opportunities with which they can flourish as students as well as professionals in their fields once they graduate. My goal will be to maximise windows of opportunities, whether development or employability, which leaves them empowered to choose the best for themselves. And that is the statement from Marine Nazir, who, as I said before, cannot be with us this afternoon. Which brings us on to our next candidate, and I'll invite them to join us up on stage now. That is Izzy. Eerily quiet, isn't it?
Yeah.
Walking up on stage.
Yeah.
Let's kick this one off with the same question I started for Jonah. Let's say you win the election. Walk into that office. Day one, first thing on your list.
So I imagine the first thing that I'll be doing will be kind of training and GDPR things, but the first thing I'll want to be doing will be speaking with students and finding out what their priorities are for me in the role. I've got a lot of ideas, but my main priority is going out, speaking to students on Streatham, on St Luke's, via focus groups, and finding out what they want so that can inform my strategy going forward.
So that's very much a listening approach then that you'll be taking throughout your time as VP Opportunities, I'd imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I really have come to appreciate the value of active listening through my experience volunteering with Nightline. And I've been fully trained in active listening and used it throughout the pandemic whilst I was volunteering with them. And I want to bring that to this role.
So is that the sort of involvement in a society that may have inspired you to run for VP Opportunities, or what did inspire you to run?
So I think what inspired me to run was that before I came to uni, I wasn't a super confident person at all, and found kind of going out, socialising, pushing myself out of my comfort zone quite difficult. But since I've been at Exeter, all the societies I've joined have been so welcoming and so fantastic. And I've been able to make so many great friends and been able to access so many opportunities that I wanted to enter the role to make sure that other people could have that experience and I could provide for them a similar experience to what I have really enjoyed.
Let's turn briefly to access and accessibility, because as I think all of us in the room and probably watching on the feed as well, if you're in Exeter, will know it is often it's a very hilly place. There's lots of steep inclines. If you look on campus as well, there are still plenty of places that it might be much more challenging for a physically less able student to attend. Say if there was a social or some sort of society meeting in Peter Chalk or in the Labour building perhaps. How would you go about making sure the societies are holding accessible events while still being in the places they need to be?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as you said, the physical access at Exeter is difficult a lot of the time purely because of the environment. So kind of overcoming that, we can't get rid of Forum Hill. So encouraging societies to run events in places like Streatham Court, Cornwall House, places that are not up an incline or places without stairs. So there's kind of accessible routes that people can take to reach them. As well as that, kind of reaching out to students and seeing whether in-person events are the best option or whether offering online equivalents. So one thing I'd want to do is require societies where possible to run a minimum of one online event per term, so that if there is no way to make the campus accessible, then students can still get involved. But I think running events in places with an accessible route, publicising the accessible route without hills, without stairs, so people aren't put off and they know which way to go to make sure that they can access it.
You've had a number of different roles on societies in your time at Exeter, as your personal statement says. But one role that's come under a bit of scrutiny, not a role you've held yourself, I might add, in general, has been that of welfare secretaries across societies. It's been found that in many cases, the welfare secretary is sort of a role that can end up being tagged on to the vice president or the deputy manager, or whichever the second most senior position in that society is. Would you be looking to address that, and if so, how?
For sure. I think that you can't force a society to adapt their constitution to include a welfare secretary, but I would want to encourage that for people to include welfare secretary along with president, treasurer, social secretary, the roles that they need to elect at their AGM for the society to keep running. And then as well as this, making sure that welfare secretaries are fully trained and also supported by the Guild, so that not only do they exist, but that they are effective and doing the role and helping students as they're intended to.
There is already some form of programme of welfare training and safeguarding training. Would you be looking to extend that and expand it for societies?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the current provisions are good, but that doesn't mean that they can't be improved. So things I'd want to introduce would be active listening training in collaboration with Nightline, first aid training, because one part of welfare is people's concerns if they've got kind of physical access needs, that these can't be met if there is a need for assistance. And also providing free period products confidentially via welfare secretaries as well. So that's the kind of training that I'd want to increase and have a support network in place at the Guild for welfare secretaries, because this is a big role and there does need to be support for the people that are supporting others.
So your overall vision of what you would want the role to be in an ideal situation, how would you see the role operating?
So I just want students to see me as someone very approachable, someone who's friendly, someone that's not going to make judgments on any part of their background, and feel like no request is too big or too small. I couldn't promise to fulfill on absolutely every single thing that students want, but I will listen and I will do everything that is in my power to help students and to assist them to access university to the fullest.
Now we know, obviously, Jonah has a large plan regarding to employability. Have you got similar strategies for employability at Exeter, and if so, would you like to detail them?
Yes, so I think my whole campaign, I'm kind of putting mental health and inclusivity at the centre, and that goes for activities as well as careers. So I conducted a survey before running my campaign so that it was informed by student priorities, and 85% of the respondents said that they were between 3 and 5 on a scale of 1 to 5 of their anxieties about finding a career after university. So I think my career strategy would be to reduce people's concerns, and doing this through running particular workshops focused on mental health, and kind of looking towards the future, and framing it in a more positive light, and publicising the amazing events that the Career Zone already run, because the feedback was that the Career Zone is actually very good and people do really appreciate it. It's just finding the time and the information about where to go. So I'd want to support people to be less anxious about graduating, and also bringing in a more diverse range of recruiters on campus has been one of the main parts of my campaign, is that I want to represent more careers from places like the arts, the charity sector, and speak to students if there's kind of any other sectors that they feel are particularly underrepresented on campus as it stands.
This is now where we're going to turn once again to our audience. Are there any questions people want to ask? Yes.
Since I'll be asking all the candidates the same question, I don't know if there's anything more you want to add, but how are you going to encourage societies to be more accessible to students with disabilities?
So I think in the kind of expanded training programme for welfare officers that I want to run, including information on accessibility, I've already reached out to societies like British Sign Language and First Aid, because those are both societies that I'd want to work with in running a more accessible programme. So I'd want societies to be fully trained and fully comfortable and able to come to the Guild with any questions that they've got, and continue asking the people that it affects, which I think is the main concern, because I can make judgments on what I think will be useful, but at the end of the day, the best thing to do is to speak to the people that aren't being included and need events to be more accessible.
From an ex-media member is, are you aware of the impacts the commercial transfer has had on societies, and how would you aim to rectify this during negotiations?
I'm actually not aware what the commercial transfer is.
I mean,
Is it possible to ask?
We've got plenty of people in the audience who may be more over. Should we pass over to one of our Guild staff?
Yeah,
There we go.
sure. So the commercial transfer happened about 2 years ago now, and it's where the outlets that used to be run by the Guild, so the RAM, Comeda, Lemon Grove, have been transferred over to be run by the university.
Okay. Yeah, I understand now. So I think that it's difficult because I think a lot of students still perceive these outlets to be run by the Guild. So I know that there's kind of a lot of controversy, and there's been a story in Expose about food waste in the RAM, and the Guild has come under a lot of fire for that, even though it is now a university-owned outlet. And I know that societies still continue to use these places a lot, because they're on campus, they're easy to get to, students tend to know where they are, and so I think that has affected societies in terms of being accountable for something that's held by the university, and perhaps not being able to book and use these spaces as such ease as if they were Guild affiliated. So I think kind of communicating with the university, asking how societies can do things like booking out these spaces for events, and how this process can be kind of increased in synergy between them.
I think we might have some questions from our hashtag EXE Elections 22. So over to Emily in the audience.
So I've got a couple for online. So the first one is from Chris, and he says, do you think it's important to ensure that all committee members take active responsibility for welfare and don't put the onus all on one person?
Yeah, no, I completely agree that. So the welfare officer will probably be the one who is kind of going to the training and having the most responsibility for that. But absolutely, it shouldn't be all on the welfare officer, because they're not a robot. They have their own welfare and mental health that needs looking after as well. So I think in the kind of standard committee training, there should be information on welfare, and the welfare kind of training specifically for the welfare secretary should also be kind of passed on, the key points, to the rest of the committee, so that the role can be kind of shared, or even in cases where it's possible, having 2 welfare secretaries, so it is not all falling on one individual. But I would definitely want the rest of the committee to be conscious of that, and for the Guild to run sessions and kind of workshops for welfare secretaries to come and kind of unwind and talk about any concerns that they've got, so that welfare secretaries don't feel like it's them against the world.
Question from Callum. He says, you mentioned first aid training for committee members. Whilst definitely a useful tool, many courses are really expensive, and in a time where societies and the Guild as a whole is trying to keep costs low, how would you facilitate this training?
Definitely. So kind of concerns on budget, that would be something I think that I would learn a little bit more about, actually being an incumbent in the role. But although it's expensive, I do think that it is very important in the risk assessments that you do complete for society events. A lot of the risk assessments are centred around first aid, and if there's no one in attendance at this event with first aid training, I think that's a huge flaw, and it makes events inaccessible, it makes them dangerous, it makes certain people feel too conscious to come. So even though it would be expensive, fundraising for this or doing anything within the power of the Guilds to implement this, even if it's only one committee member per society that is first aid trained, or inviting other people that are first aid trained to join the society, or encouraging a kind of first aid rep, if there's people already in the society that have had first aid training through other means, to come and be present at the event, hopefully not actually have to do anything, because you don't want an instance of first aid to happen at your event, but I think it's really important for the precautions to be in place if it does, even if it is an expensive endeavour.
Do we have any other questions from our audience in today? No, it's back to me then. It's back to me. So we asked Jonah about communication and the different ways in which the Guild gets in touch with people, and he mentioned his plans on how he would be looking to change that. Do you have any strategies on how you want to address communication?
Yes, so I would continue using the email system, but tweaking it. I think making emails less information heavy, having it very clear in the subject of the email what it's about. So if students need to go back to anything, they can search it in their inbox a little bit more easily. I think some students do read the emails, but not all of them do. So it's important to keep the emails in place for the students that do use them and maybe don't use social media. So keeping emails in place, but perhaps running kind of equivalent posts on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, the Guild social media channels, and encouraging interactions through things like polls and votes, to make sure that people are kind of not just glazing over it and scrolling past, but actually taking it in and engaging with it as well. Because I found that running interactive elements in my campaign has created a lot more engagement. So I think having Guild publicising their information via social media as well as emails would be a really good way to kind of get around the communication problem that's happening at the moment.
Speaking of communication, if people have enjoyed what you've been communicating to them, how can they get in touch with your campaign and find out some more?
Yep, so my campaign is at is4ops, so that's IZ, letter 4, OPPS. Sorry, number 4, not letter 4.
Oh.
On,
it's a long week.
Yeah,
long week.
On Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. So send me a message. I'd be really happy to chat with you.
There we go. I think that is just about our time for you, but thank you very much for answering the questions.
Thank you for having me.
And yes, easy everyone. We're going to move on to our next candidate now. So could Luena please join me on stage? There we go. Right, back to the questions. Top of the list again. Let's see how this one goes. What inspired you to run for the role that you're running for now?
I think the societies at Exeter are really brilliant, but I think there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. So as president of Exeter University Theatre Company for the past year, I feel like I've made a lot of really good changes, and to be completely honest, I have really good project management skills, and I've worked with very high budget projects to make sure that they are being broken down into short-term achievable goals. And I think that by guiding other societies to do the same, we will be able to achieve the inclusion and accessibility that aren't necessarily present in all societies at the moment.
So you've worked obviously in that society that you've named. If you were to become VP Opportunities, you'd be working with a team of the 3 other guild officers who are in the office and in close conjunction with the sports president as well. What experiences would you be drawing on to make sure that it's a fully functioning and highly functioning unit?
I think I have brilliant team leading skills, and I think, obviously all of the officers involved are great leaders, and the people that want to get involved really do enjoy leading a team. And so I think it would be a case of establishing that connection from the very beginning and looking at, okay, so as a unit, what are our collective strengths? What are our individual weaknesses? How can we counterbalance those? Because obviously no one is perfect. No one's going to be able to do every single job. And so I think it is just making sure that we know how we can work as a unit, because I'm not going to lie, I am not a very sporty person, but I do want to listen to people and I want to learn. And I think it's by communicating with each other and communicating with the students that are from these societies that we can further this.
So, again, I've asked this to both the candidates so far. If you could envision the role as its best form for you, what form would VP Opportunities take?
I think it would take the form of breaking down barriers. It sounds very cliche, but I think it is about breaking down the barriers, because although there are a lot of great opportunities at this university, there are barriers of privilege, racism, accessibility needs that stop people from getting involved and stop people from making the most of these opportunities. And I think the fact that it is a very daunting question, what will I do when I finish university? But equally, there are smaller daunting questions along the way. So how do I get involved with the society? What if I can't afford the membership? Things like that. And I think it is just trying to break down those barriers by looking at funding available, working with the other officers to listen to the student community.
So that'd be probably quite a close coordination with the VP Liberation and Equality in that particular regard.
Yes.
Moving on to the bit you mentioned a little bit at the end, sort of employability and where you go after university. Do you have any ideas about if you want to change or how you want to change things that we currently do at the university?
I think there are some great things that happen at the university so far. I think the Career Mentor Scheme, for one, is a really brilliant initiative, which means that you can get specific mentorship from somebody that is actually in your area, because I think it can be very difficult if you go to, for example, the career zone, and if you are wanting to speak to them about a more, creative field, and maybe their experience is in accounting or something like that, and those are the pathways that they can direct you to. And I think we need to be able to listen to students that are involved, that are interested in all of these different sectors. And so by using the connections that we already have through the Career Mentor Scheme and local businesses, there are so many great local businesses, I think that it would be really great to have career events for each of these different sort of sectors. And, maybe it is a case of we create a larger group with the different forms of sectors, and then people can subscribe to, maybe like a mailing list or follow one account that on social media that will tell them what all the opportunities are and who they can get involved with, and just free workshops and courses in the area as well, because there are some really great courses that are going on in the local area. So I've recently done one with Business and Partnership, Business and Intellectual Property Centre of Devon, and I'm doing a Women in Business course, and that's free. It's 12 weeks and it's completely free. So it's just signposting people to all those things available to them.
So a large part of the role of VP Opportunities will be focused around societies, and obviously you have some experience with your societies. Whilst we are a very large university, I think the last numbers are somewhere just north of 30,000 students, There are also some societies who have regional groups. So I'm thinking of maybe from Expression FM's point of view, there's a student radio network and student music networks. How will you use the position to, if societies want to, help connect them across the region to make their voice heard even louder?
I don't think it's going to be the same for every single society. You know, some societies already have those communication, those links in place. So I think it is starting off by saying, okay, so, you know, maybe we meet with the arts and culture groups and speak to them and say, okay, so do you have links with other universities? Do you have links with, you know, colleges in the areas, things like that? And then, you know, move on to the different forms of societies. So, for example, the non-AU affiliated sports societies. Are there other societies that are trying to achieve a similar thing with their members? And just make sure that we are utilising and fully utilising the things that are already in place, so that then we can go forward and notice that, okay, so this is the gap in what we're trying to achieve, and then communicate with people in a similar position to me as VP Opportunities to ensure that we are bridging that gap.
I think communication's been a major theme across the form of these debates, and we've heard what the two candidates before you have had to say about this one. What would be your ideas on how you might want to adapt how the Guild currently talks to the students that it represents?
I think, as Izzy said, I think it's, you know, quite right that we need to keep doing emails as well, because a lot of people aren't on social media, and I think a lot of the time there can be a big jump to, you know, from where they've been at home to then get involved with and be on every single social media platform. So keeping emails in place would be obviously a given, but I think also then we could have something on the, and I'm not a tech designer, but I think we could have something on the Guild website that shows you, okay, so obviously we have the different categories of societies. So, you know, when you're looking for societies, you can go on and select the category. But maybe for that category, every time they add an event up, it goes under a certain like keyword or phrase. And then people can subscribe to that email channel, so they know that the things they're getting through in their inbox, or perhaps on social media, we could do the same thing. So they know that the things that they are getting through are relevant to their interests. And, you know, you could do the same thing by, for example, having like non-AU affiliated sports societies having like an account for them on Instagram and things like that, or a Twitter feed that people can log into.
So a much more sort of targeted way of getting these bits of information across. I have one more question, then we'll turn to the audience. Why are you better suited to be VP Opportunities than our other candidates here?
I have a lot of experience working within societies. I've also experienced quite a lot of hardship in my life. So a lot of the opportunities that I've had have come from, you know, funding from local councils and things like that. And I have very much seen the barriers that can stop people from getting involved with societies. So as a student who also works alongside being on a committee and doing a degree, I find that it is a lot to juggle. And I know that a lot of, even being able to do that myself, I am incredibly privileged, and I am privileged in a lot of other ways. And I think that it's really important that we recognise the privileges that we have at this university. And I want to recognise my own privileges, where I stand, and then look at other people's experiences and think, okay, so this is how we can make sure that everyone gets included and gets involved, because I'm really proud of where I've come from, and I think that I have a really great way of making sure that other people can have the same opportunities as me, given all of my experience.
It's time to turn to our regular first contributor from the audience.
Hi, Wen. I bet you can guess what I'm going to ask. My question is, how will you encourage societies to be more accessible to students with disabilities?
I think largely it comes down to education. I think the problem is that, you know, we are all students. None of us know what we're doing when we get elected into a committee role. It's very much you learn on the job. By the time you hand over, you will know what you're doing, but when you get into it, you're not going to have a clue. So I think it just comes down to educating people, because there's no way that one person on a committee can know every single person in this university's accessibility needs. So I think it is on making sure that societies are being given general education on accessibility needs, but also what to do if members are struggling with accessibilities, what happens if something happens to a member at an event and they need certain support, so whether that is visible or non-visible support. So I think it all just comes down to educating the societies to make sure that they know how to gather feedback from their members and implement that properly.
have a question from another ex-media contributor. We're doing good.
We're doing quite well
We're
today.
bringing the questions. You speak a lot about experience on the committee for UTCO. There are similarities between different societies' committees, but they can also have very different needs based on what the society does. How would you adapt the variety of needs different societies might bring?
Yeah, I think as I said on the disability topic, it's the same thing. You can never know what every single society needs or wants, and I think it does just come from listening. So at the start of the year, I would look to introduce a feedback form in which people could say, okay, so these are the things that, these are our top 3 priorities, for example. These are our top 3 priorities in what we need to give members, and these are 3 barriers that we're experiencing in giving those to members. And so I think that by making sure that we are listening to each society's different needs and holding those focus groups and having those open discussions, it'll be much easier to actually implement those things to make sure that every society is being included the same way by the Guild.
So we've got a question at the back. Yes.
Yeah, so my question is, what has your experience been with the Guild's event submission process, and how would you streamline this to make it more accessible to students?
Understandably, the Guild get a lot of events through. It's great that we have so many societies, but that does also mean that there's going to be a lot of traffic on the events that are being submitted. And so I think it is a case of making sure that we have specific events and specific risk assessments for events. So, for example, the risk assessment needed for a pub social is going to be very different to the risk assessment for doing a show at the Edinburgh Fringe. It's going to be very different, and it's about knowing the nuances of those different things, speaking to the societies, making sure that we know the things that they expect from us and the things that we need from them in terms of insurance, and making sure that people are safe. And I would make sure that we are having that clear communication to make sure that then we are streamlining and getting rid of the bureaucracy that surrounds some of the risk assessments and event submissions.
If you've got any more questions from the audience or even from our online viewership, looks like you're back to me then, when I'm sure you're thrilled about that one.
I am.
Oh, there we go. We talked briefly at the start about some of the campus services that are around, but one of them we didn't quite touch on was sort of well-being and mental health. Now, in my question to Izzy, I mentioned how there were various different challenges and things that have been brought up in that area. Would you be looking to adapt how the well-being service works? And if so, how would you aim to do that?
Yeah, so in a very similar way to Izzy, I would want to, make sure that there is the education in place for society committees. But then more generally for students, I think it's about funding. The problem is that students know where to go, but then you go to wellbeing and you're put on a waiting list. And, from experience, I was told, come back in a month. We could see you in a month. And then you ring back and you ask for a sooner appointment, and then it goes down to maybe 3 weeks. And that doesn't answer the problems that you have now. And so I think it is making sure that we're putting pressure on the university to fund those projects. And, they need to hear from students about what they actually think is going to be meaningful and what's actually going to make a difference to them. I know that the university have invested in the Erase the Grey campaign thing, which Expose wrote an article on, which I thought was great, and it's very problematic. And they admitted that they knew that it might affect some students, but by not listening to the students that might be affected by it, I believe that they've gone down the wrong route. So it's about having that open communication and telling the university, okay, so you're willing to put money into this, but this is actually where it needs to go. This is actually what the students need and require from you, because it's really flipping scary being at uni. It's terrifying. There's so much responsibility, and you want to make the most of it. And how are we supposed to do that if the Guild aren't putting pressure on the university, and if the university aren't providing the things that we deserve as students?
Speaking of making the most of it, if you were to become elected, and let's say you make the most of the role you have, whatever that means to you, what sort of lasting impact and legacy, if I use that word, would you like to leave behind after your year would be over? For
me, that comes down to 3 things, which are actually in my manifesto, personal statement. So safety, I want the safety to be improved on campus and at our events, so that people feel like they can get involved with things without being affected by anything. Support, making sure that people, so committees, societies are being supported by myself and by the Guild, but also being financially supported so that, you know, people who maybe don't have the money to invest in different societies to give every single thing a go, they can still give something a go, and there is support from the Guild and the university for them to pursue that. And then finally is inclusion, to make sure that everyone can get involved. And, you know, we would have online socials, online activities, feedback forms so that people know how to cater for students with different accessibility needs. So basically, safety support and inclusion is what I'd want to leave in the Guild.
There we go. And where can people find more information on your campaign and your manifesto or personal statement ideas?
So you can find me on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram at If Not Now, When. Bit of a pun for you there. But yeah, so it's If Not Now, When. And I would love to make change in the Guild, because if not now, when?
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
There is one more candidate who is running for the position of VP Opportunities, and unfortunately they have also not turned up tonight, unless I've really missed them, which would be quite embarrassing, but it does appear that they are not here. So once again, I'm going to read out a statement on their behalf, and this is, again, the personal statement, at this time from Kaif-ur-Rahman. I'm standing to be elected as the Vice President Opportunities because I would like to ensure that the students studying at university should be given equal attention and utmost help for any support they need to achieve greater goals. As a fresher especially, I believe I can have an impartial view to the matters of the university and as a result improve the compatibility of the opportunities that can be paved for each student. As your representative in the Students' Guild, I would aim to ensure that anyone can approach me for the required help, both in and out of the university, in terms of work, funding, studies, etc. To closely bring forward the opportunities that the local bodies/companies are providing students with, and will focus to take an individual from where he is to where he wants to be. In order to deliver upon these aims, I will use my previous experience in my school and college. As well as this, I will endeavour to give you opportunities to inform me of what I can do to improve your experience, because you know best what you want help with. I will be honoured to represent you during the coming year and to be given the opportunity to make a positive impact on your university experience. And as I said before, the personal statement of Kaif-ur-Rahman. And that brings to an end today's session. We've heard from all 5 candidates, either in the room or through their statements, and you've had a chance to put questions to the candidates that were in the room with us. All that's left for you to do now is to vote if you can, and you can do that quickly and simply by going to exeterguild.com/vote. We can see plenty of you have been doing it in the time since I've been in the room. It's gone up by 329. So that's a good show for just over an hour. The next Meet the Candidates session will be tomorrow, Wednesday the 16th of March at 1:30, which will be the Vice President Education Meet the Candidates session, which will be followed immediately at 2:30 by the VP Liberation and Equality Candidates session. We will round off all of these sessions at 6:30, also tomorrow on the 16th of March, where the Guild presidential candidates will be facing questions. But apart from that, as a little trailer for what is to come, thank you very much for joining us on the stream and for joining us in the audience. I've been Rhys Wallace from Expression FM, and this has been the VP Opportunities Meet the Candidates session. Have a good day.